Hello, humans, and welcome to another episode of the Cartridge and Disc Podcast. This is your Gen X Gamer here, and today, let's give you another listen to it. Oh yeah, pumping that vein for that booster shot. Let's get a shot of the Amico going. That's right. Guys, the story that never ends, right? Well, there was an interesting post posted up about a day ago in the Intellivision_Amico Reddit that somebody put on. And let me just say this. What I'm going to give you right now are just my memories off the cuff. I don't have any research in front of me like I used to back in the day. I don't have the computer going on. This is going to be completely off the cuff and just off of memory, just because some things I do remember, guys, because, we've been following this story now. Holy crap. For years and years now, right? But there's a lot of new viewers on the channel, so I thought it'd be good to introduce them to some of this craziness right here. And if I forget something, guys, or if I don't remember something, or if you have something to add, just go ahead and write it down in the comments, right? Especially I'm on very few hours sleep. I've changed a few diapers this morning, so I'm just, going off the cuff, like I said here, and let's get to these questions that were posted up by D-List Celebrity. And there's, let me see how many. There's 13 questions, probably 14 with one that Gatoru's put on there. Now, let's start off with number one. Why didn't they just drop it when the big investor fell through? Well, from what I gather, and again, guys, this is just what I've gathered throughout the years. This is hypothesis, conjecture, right? Someday we will know the real truth, because somebody's going to write a book about this. I am sure. I can't wait for the movie. But from what I know, from what I've been told, is that by the time this happened, when the big investor fell through, the board had already put in their money. Money had already been spent. So if you just close it right there, people would have lost money. People that Tommy brought in. So he had to basically save face and pivot to another strategy after that. And that's really important, because if you remember, up to this point where the investor fell through, when they made that presentation, when Metal Jesus and his crew were trying out the console, it was all about retro, right? So I want you to remember that. So let's go to number two here. Why didn't anyone put a leash and muzzle on Tallarico earlier? Did nobody take the slightest interest in what he was doing to screw them over? Well, let me say this. We like to, almost make a cartoon out of Mr. Tallarico. And the fact is that he does have some skills. He really does. Whether we like it or not, this man, right? And some of you don't like it because you don't like him specifically. He's brought me tons of entertainment. I didn't invest in the company, right? So I don't have those feelings towards him. I think he's great for the internet. He's been great for my channel. But regardless, why didn't anybody quiet them down, right? Why didn't anybody stop him? Number one, he was the CEO of the company, right? Number one. Number two, Tommy does get stuff done. Whether you like it or not, this man makes at a minimum, without television, without any of this stuff, just on his own, he can make about $500,000 every year on his own. Anywhere from $500,000 to about 800,000 if the figures are to be believed out there. Right? So that's what he's raking in regardless. So he's a man who gets stuff done. However he does it, it doesn't matter. The methods might be questionable, but the fact is that he gets things done. Right? He does have a set of skills. The gift of gab is one of them. And he was the one that was going to bring the investors back their money and then some. Okay? Nobody's investing to lose money. Nobody's investing to lose money. And he's the only one that can get it there. The biggest fear of people, believe it or not, is public speaking. Dying is number two. Number two, people don't like talking. So people who have the gift to gab, they lead them up front. Nobody else wants to be out there. Nobody else wants to take the shots, right, on social media. So that's one of the primary reasons. And number two is he was bringing in money. It's that simple. He was making sure that money was coming in to repay those investors. That's why. So as long as they're getting the money, they don't care what he's doing on social media, really, because they just care about their initial investment, from what I've been told. Okay, so he didn't screw anybody over, like the question says. The only people that got screwed over here are the investors that invested through the Fig Republic deal, and they have no voice in the company. So the only ones that could rein them in are the people that are getting paid back their money, and why would they if they're getting their money back? The investors are something completely different. Okay. Number three, have there been any other inquiries from the SEC or other authorities that we know about? No, not that we know about. In the grand scheme of things, guys, this is small fish. Unless somebody brings some sort of action where they can verify the information, they're not going to do anything. As far as I know, there's no open investigations or anything like that. So until somebody raises their hand and says there's something amiss here, nothing's going to happen. If it did, it would probably be against Fig and not Intellivision themselves. Okay, what exactly went down between Arc Electronics and Intellivision Entertainment? That is question number 4. And that is really, this is going to be a lot of conjecture, because there's two schools of thoughts here, guys. There's two schools of thought on this one. Number one, this deal was the catalyst for the removal of Tallarico, because this really showed his inexperience, because he signed a purchase order. He made a deal with his company before the console was finalized. And of course, you know, John Alvarado and his team failed to deliver on the hardware in time for them to do anything with the console, number one. Again, that is what is said. And since they didn't hit that mark, so they didn't have anything ready or the money at the time, the deal fell through. And because of that, and remember, money was given by Sudesh for this specific purpose. So that is Sudesh's money, technically, that went down the toilet. And that was one of the reasons for his eventual removal. Now, the other school of thought is that they needed to put this purchase order out there in order to raise some other funds and to make it seem legit, quote unquote. Yes, you wasted $1 million, but because you had that contract, because you had that manufacturing contract, that allowed you to get, you know, 17 million extra dollars in investment money. So basically, it's just the cost of doing business. So those are the two competing schools of thought that I've seen the strongest evidence for. I don't know that either one is true, okay, but that's just what's out there. That is the best information that I can give you regarding that. Number 5, who had the brilliant idea to control what could be said on Atari Age, Reddit, and the current Facebook group? Well, it has to be Intellivision, whoever at Intellivision that is, you know, in the Reddit group, Atari Age. I'm sure it was Tallarico and the strong bond that he had with a lot of people at that time, right? Because remember, when it first started, Tommy had good relations with everybody. He was a legend in the video game industry, and nobody had, you know, any animosity towards him, nor they didn't have any reason why to doubt him. And people coming from the outside, you know, quote unquote, disrespecting him wasn't, you know, something they wanted to put up with. Not to this legend. Of course, later on, you know, as things grew, as the evidence grew of what was going on, that changed. But at the beginning, they're the primary drivers in television, Tommy Tallarico, as far as I know. 6, describe the rumored pro-anti-Amico factions within the company during the crowdfunding period. Okay, now this is where Again, this is conjecture, and from what I've been told, and so, some things I just can't tell you because the people that told me, specifically said, do not say anything. This is not coming from me, but let me point you in the right direction, okay? So, when the crowdfunding happened, okay, and this is what has been said from the inside. When the crowdfunding was happening, they already saw Tommy spending money like a drunken sailor. And they were really concerned. They were really, really concerned about their initial investments. They wanted to get paid first. They didn't want to wait for Tommy to do his release and this and that and the other. They needed their money now. Now, guys, as I've always told you, investors are rich because they know how to invest. Okay? Investors are rich because they don't lose money. Some entrepreneurs, dreamers, etc., want to take a chance and want to hit that home run. Of course, somebody has to do that, right? Somebody has to take that chance. But investors, especially when they're investing a lot of their own capital, they're really careful with it, right? Because rule number one of investing is don't lose money. That's rule number one. If you lose money, it's not investing. The minute you lose money, it's gambling, right? So the investors, and I'm talking about the board, have to look after their money first. So when that money came in, their drive was to pay themselves first, while Tommy's was to keep on going the way he was going, to make it look big, to make it seem like it's a company that's, rolling and they're very professional, Facebook-like, because he's looking to flip the company, which was the idea with the initial investor. When that initial investor dropped, that quick flip was out of the question. They couldn't do that anymore. And the initial investors, the board, was concerned that they weren't ever going to get another investor given the climate of the economy. Because remember, these people are investors and they can read the tea leaves. They saw where, the market was going. So they decided to take their profits, and if that meant getting rid of Amico, then that's what they did. And the primary driver for that, who was it? Sudesh, according to what I hear, because he's the one that lent money for manufacturing that never happened. Okay, so that's what I know. Again, guys, if you have other information, other ideas, go ahead and share it. I'm just telling you off the cuff, right? Without reading my notes for the last, 3 years, this is what I'm going to tell you. What was Michael Patcher's relationship with Intellivision Company? Was he compensated anyway for his early endorsements? I don't know that that's ever been revealed. So I got to take, and I don't remember off the top of my head. So I'm going to have to pass on that one. If you guys know, go ahead and put it down. What happened to John Riggs leading up to the announcement of physical product? Was he compensated in any way? Was he coached into what to say and not say? As far as, you always talk to sponsors before you make any type of announcement. That would just be reasonable. As far as the compensation, it starts with the games themselves. It starts with the 8-pack. You got a free 8-pack. That's $150 right there, right? So that's a compensation. I don't know that he's ever said publicly. I mean, I bugged him a couple of times about, that he had steak in the sizzle or whatever the hell he said. He doesn't like it much. He doesn't like the Amico thing brought up right now. But, as far as I know, and as far as what's been said, other than the games, he didn't get anything else. Okay, and then he's the one who blew it. Remember, he blew it. He actually showed what was inside before Intellivision announced it. He screwed the pooch. Okay, number 9. What made Tommy Tallarico think mortgaging his house for this project was a good idea? And what made him finally shut up and go into hiding? Did he take enough back from loan repayments from the company to be financially whole again? Okay, so there's a few questions in there. Mortgaging his house to buy the Intellivision Amico name, or the Intellivision name, I'm sorry, absolutely worth it. At the time that he did it, and it still would be, right, a good financial investment. The execution of what he did was terrible, because what he should have done is just, I mean, if that's what you're going to do, and again, this is not financial advice to anybody, he could have just licensed it out to people that know what they're doing. He could have made in television minis. He could just license out the names to companies that wanted to use the name. He could have done so many things that would have been less risky, but then, of course, he wouldn't have gotten the shine that he got. And Tommy was looking for the spotlight. You know, he's a, what do they call it here, a D-list celebrity, and this is just my conjecture. You know, he wanted to be up front in the gaming industry again. You know, he wanted to be the face of something, and, you know, he invested in it. However you feel about the man's made money. He makes stuff happen. He does have some gifts. He is an entertainer, a natural entertainer. Besides, you know, everything else that you know about him. You know, especially in this context, it's very hard, because whenever, you know, you say something positive about them, you have like a negative reaction from people right away. Look, nobody can be 100% bad or 100% good. Not me, not, you know, anybody else on the planet. We all have good and bad things, right? But at the end, what determines anything is the results. What should you end up with? By hook or crook, you got to a certain level, right? And that's what people view. You know, they just see results when they're going to put money into things. But as far as we know, he was made whole again by the papers filed to the SEC, because they were going to repay themselves first, which he didn't want to do, by the way, and that's why he signed a lot of the personal guarantees or what have you, which are coming back to haunt him now. But, you know, as far as his initial investment, he was repaid in full according to the papers we read. Now, what's happened from there, I don't know if he's got to pay this $110,000, or maybe they'll negotiate it to $50,000, whatever the heck it is, that he's got to take a hit on. So it's less that, but he's not hurting for money. That I can tell you. Okay, what happened with Jay Allard, Perrin Kaplan, Chuck LaBella, and other prominent name drops? To what extent were they actually involved? Now this one, guys, we actually got the answer for a lot of this from Phil Adam himself. Remember when Phil Adam was getting roasted for being part of the whole Coleco Chameleon? He actually said what these things are. So these guys roll in the same circle of friends, if you will, the same Kickstarter stuff. And what these people do, as described by Phil Adam, they lend their names in order to lend projects credibility. That's what they do. And in the ColecoVision, he gave his name out there. He got a salary. He just had to take a couple of pictures, you know, make a few phone calls, and, you know, put your name on a website. Of course, that came back to haunt him, and that's why he had to explain this. But a lot of these guys were just figureheads, just in order to say, look, we have this person on board. We have that person on board. We have that person on board. Of course, Jay Allard, you know, took it like everybody else, but as soon as he saw what was really going on, he says, it's not a good fit. Even though Tommy was still promoting him out there. I mean, that's all on Tommy, right? The bad reputation that Tommy gets is from the untruths that he tells, the documented ones. Because it's not an exaggeration. There's exaggerations and there's lies. And when you say somebody's at your company who said it's not a good fit, then that's when people start, you know, kind of looking at you sideways, you know, and also all the other stuff, right? The only one that I can chastise him for, because nothing's affected me personally, other than not having my wood grain, that I do hold against him, is the whole MTV Crib stuff, right? But, you know, that's how these people roll. That's what's going on in a lot of these Kickstarter guys. So be careful when you see people saying, oh, I have this person backing this project, that person. Whenever you hear that, it's probably more likely a scam. Because you have to ask, are they working full time? Are you giving these people a W-2? Are they actual employees? As soon as you hear consultant, you know, run away. Because consultant means you call the office, you know, 30 minutes every month, you know. So just be aware of that. Is there an individual from the inside a company we can actually trust to provide factual, truthful answers to some of these questions? The answer is no. Absolutely not. Not only in this company, but in any other company. Because when you work for a company and they pay you, it is your job to put that company in the best light possible. Does everybody do that? No. Should you do that in this case? Yes. With so much threat and litigation going on here, the best thing for you would be to just shut up or not say anything. Okay. To what extent does Intellivision Amico actually a scam pulled by Tallarico and friends by Design Central, Arc Electronics, Amore Furniture Licensing, and Nick Radrood Richards? Well, Nick Radrood Richards, he's a car salesman. So, I mean, that should tell you do I need he sells cars. He sells used cars, right? Do I need to say anything more? I mean, he's a wholesale auto dealer, I think he registered his business as. But still, it's used cars. And he kills prairie dogs. Cute little prairie dogs being shot by this man. How can you trust them? So, as far as Tallarico, I think that he really thought that he could pull it off at first, that he could do that flip. I don't think he believed, right? His ego, as far as is being reported, really took a hit when the investor told him no, because investors, these investors are not rich because they're stupid with their money, right? They can read the tea leaves. As soon as Tallarico came out with a console, he had no interest. If he was just talking about, software, that's a whole different thing. Right? Software is all profit. When you're talking about hardware, it's all money tied up for years before you see a single red cent. I don't think Arc Electronics, or the manufacturer that they lost the contract with, they lost $1 million. You don't go into litigation if you're part of a scam, because you can go to jail. Anybody that's making misleading statements there is doing that. Amore Furniture Licensing, again, that's just Tommy signing a personal guarantee, which you should never do. So I think it didn't start off as a scam. I think Tommy, once his dreams fell apart of what he wanted to do initially, I think, and this is just my own personal opinion, I think his ego overtook and he wanted to do it regardless. At that point, he should just, from his own money, just said, look, it didn't work out. Let's pay everybody back how much money is left. Let's just end it here. Or even after they raised the money, after the $17 million or whatever it was, after everybody got paid back, at that point, he should have pivoted and said, let's make something smaller. Let's make the mini. Guys, I tried, and that's it. And just exit it, like a gentleman, rather than what happened, But I don't think in the beginning you start off as a scam because you're mortgaging your house. You're putting a lot of your personal worth up there. Once he saw the tea leaves, and once the board told him, no, we're taking our money back, he had no choice, right? He had no choice, because once they start giving those repayments out, they have to repay them to everybody that's in the company. Now, if you want to reinvest, that's up to you, right? But if somebody else takes over, right, and somebody else is directing the vision of the company, and they say, we're going to take our money back, then everybody gets their money back and they go home. And then that's the reason why they started another fundraiser, because of course that money was gone, and it wasn't gone all from salaries. It wasn't gone from anything else other than people taking their initial investments back plus interest. And that really is where the money went, all that interest. I mean, those were loan shark type loans. Anyway, number 13, will any of these people face any form of accountability? As I told you before, the people that invested in Fig Republic. That's where they have to go first. They can't actually take direct action against Intellivision, because that's the buffer. That's the reason these companies use these third companies in order to raise funds, because that company, which in themselves are limited liability companies. So even if you sue them, there's a limited liability. And, Fig Republic is already going broke from the Intellivision deal, because they gave Intellivision the money and never saw anything back. And since nobody else was investing in anything else, and this is one of their biggest investments, and, that's why they're biting the farm. So, what... who are you going to hold accountable? If somebody sues, they would have to sue Fig and Intellivision, anybody involved. But at this point, there's no money left. What are you suing for? And most of the people invested $1,000, $1,500. It's nobody's going to take your case. Even in class action, nobody's going to say there's not enough money there. Who's going to pay the lawyers? Lawyers do it pro bono, thinking they're going to get something, but if Intellivision hasn't paid their insurance company for 2 years now, there's nothing to go after, right? And there's a number 14 question here by Gatoroots. Why did Sudesh make a manufacturing loan yet nothing was manufactured? And this is a great question from Gatoroots. This is what's rumored to be said the reason why Tommy left, because once Sudesh didn't get his money, once those were not made and he found out what happened, that's what really forced him out of the company, because Sudesh is worth about $330 million, and he knew already that he's just helping his son and his buddy trying to put this together. But one thing is helping your son, and another thing is losing $1 million. I mean, that's just what did he lend him, like $800,000, close to $1 million, right? But he's not into it for losing money. He didn't get to $330 million by pissing $800,000 away just like that, which as of right now, as far as we know, hasn't been paid yet. So because of that was the change, because of course he's one of the major members of the board. You got another member who's also worth over $300 million, and they're the two strongest voices. They're not in this to lose money, no way. And as much as they might have want to give Tommy a good faith effort, at some point you show that these people don't know what they're doing, as far as running and being the CEO of a company, whether it's Tommy Tallarico being the CEO of the company or John Alvarado being the head technology officer. I mean, those are your two biggest failures there. They're just people, hired. I'm not saying that they could have been successful in other roles. You could have Tommy as a PA guy, right? He could be your spokesperson. He would have done better, but not as a CEO. And John Alvarado could have been just great at programming games, but stay out of manufacturing, since he doesn't have the experience on that. And the time shows it. Look, we're 5 years in, nothing's been produced. The whole thing's a failure. So anyway, guys, those are just my first thoughts off the cuff going through these questions. You guys tell me, what else do you think? A lot of this is hypothesis. A lot of this is hearsay from third persons, right? But those are my thoughts right off the bat. And hopefully for those of you who haven't been following the story, maybe that give you a little bit of context of what's been going on here the last 4 or 5 years here within television. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. Oh my gosh, this is almost half an hour. I can't believe it. I can't believe it's been this long. But yeah, I mean, since we don't have any news, right? We don't have any current news. Hopefully we'll get some here in the next couple of weeks. It's nice to go back and talk about these subjects again, relive the memories, go back in time. And like I said, guys, I'm doing this off the cuff. I don't have any notes. The baby's asleep. She took a nap, so I'm taking a break here and just chatting with you guys. Hopefully you guys are having a great week. I hope that you out there have an Amico day. That's something completely different. Man, how many channels were destroyed by the whole thing? But man, what a ride it's been. I mean, whether you like this thing or you don't like this thing, I don't care what you say. The whole Amico thing has been the biggest source of entertainment probably for me in the last 5 years, and I'm sure thankful that it was around through the pandemic, because it really carried me. You know, going to work, being stuck at home, and coming home and to see what was going on with the Amico for at least 2 years was the highlight of my day during COVID. All right, guys, thank you so much. I will catch you on the next one. Take care.